My name is Stephan Lange. I'm working for almost 18 years in IT in several areas. I have been through developing stuff myself. I've been designing. I've been testing stuff. Went to operations. So I've seen a lot of things, and then finally moved some years ago in the area of DevOps. And then what really struck me 2 years ago when we merged with Solutions IQ, an US-based company that did agile transformation for 20 years. That we need to talk about the whole story, right? So we need to talk what is in the end in for enterprises. So how can they create more value out of what they do? Because in the end, it's not like because we do fancy stuff, but we need to, they need to earn money and they need to have an impact on their top and on their bottom line. That's an older statement, but it's still true from what I see out there. So I still see a lot of companies struggle. They try different paths on transformation. I will talk today about 2 of them. And it's not like a linear process, but it's where the company starts, where they go. But the things that they take and that they need to do in order to make it successful that are quite similar. And for me, let's say if you talk about the 90%, it's not that they don't get there, the companies, but it's they don't get there in the time they were thinking and with the money they were thinking. That is the typical thing. I mean, in Berlin, we know about the airport. It's probably a similar issue. We have something that we call the 3 waves of Agile. And when we're starting doing Agile, Agile at teams, I think it's not so difficult. We can do it easily. You work in an agile, in a DevOps way. You do a pilot, but that's good to prove the concept and to show everybody that it works and that the idea simply works. The second wave that we had the last 5 years, I would say, is really the scaling, talking about frameworks, about less and safe and so on, and to scale the agile approach across the enterprise. And of course, it gets especially complicated if it's a huge enterprise, if you are multi-country, to line everyone on the path. So what we call now the third wave of Agile is really at the value proportion. So to talk about what does it mean if I'm able to implement a service earlier, how much more money can I earn, how less cost do I have by implementing that service, etc. So, and what it takes, therefore, is I will go into it after I've explained one example. So, very pure slide with less bullets. So, I want to tell you one story about a customer I'm working for. 13 years now I'm working for that customer. And what we did there in that area, and that also was the customer that brought me to DevOps overall, is we started in the ops area. And a lot of the agile transformations, and it starts really in developing. This started in ops because they needed, it's an online retail, it's a retailer who is also an online business, and for the online business, it took them 3 months to roll out a new online shop. Because, of course, there's a lot of systems connected, content management system, product data, a search engine, there's recommendation engine, so a lot of systems, like 15 systems connected to bring it live. And that was a huge effort for them. And they were expecting that they need 90 people to operate a shop in 15 countries. And that was simply too much. So we started the journey on the ops side. We implemented up-to-date tool stack together with the customer. We brought up a custom tool stack to do this automatically. And then we already started the first steps of doing things together, like integrating the second level support in the ops team. And it was tremendous what we saw in the results, how the tickets went down and how you got to that mindset. Of course, this was then in one area and was not spread across the company. So we needed to take the next steps. So the next steps for them was an organizational change. And it was the first one, it was not the last one, but it was the first one was really to go to verticals. So their online business, their store business, their BI function. So they really went to verticals and say, okay, now one division is responsible end to end and we do not care about ops and dev anymore. And we brought it together. The best effect of that was, and they still operated kind of ops and dev, but what we brought together in that, in a sense, is we had integrated the business people in there, and we started the collaboration and the discussion with the business people. What do they really need? And they got to know each other. There were still some problems, of course. If you go through all the silos that you still have, there was no consistency. I mean, there were parts in the online business that were certainly better than the SAP area. And you did not really look at the value at that time, but you had the results of doing things faster and the collaboration. And then a strategy consultancy came in and said, okay, you need to do the Spotify thing. The good thing out of that is really it made them think, okay, how can we really get across our functions? How can we align? How can we have the same consistency in testing, etc.? So, and this was the perfect start for them to embark that journey. But of course, I mean, the promises that you save so much money, that you make 5 million more revenue, etc., in that time frame, it didn't come true in the beginning because it was not the whole story. But it started a thinking process, and what it also started is they moved to a product-oriented organization. So it is, imagine it's a 1,000 people IT, and in this 1,000 people IT, they then started together with their business divisions, which is like 2,000 people in their central headquarters, to create products. And they created more than 90 products, and 80% of them was really business products, like the pricing function, etc. And they had product owners, lead product owners above it. So the integration between IT and business became much more tighter. And of course, then we started a lot of things. We did together DevOps Academy trainings for their people, for their developers. We retrained operations people and still do to be able to do development work as well, because now they needed to check in their configurations in the pipeline, etc. And what we then moved to is we talked about business agility. I will come to in a minute what does it mean. And now really the focus is on value. So at the moment the customer is really focusing on value. So we discuss really with the product owners, what will this function, what will be the impact of this function to your business. One example, they now implemented a feature, a service feature, because they know in the business where they are, you do not earn a lot of margin, but there are features like services, if you sell insurances for your product, etc., where you can have more margin. And so they focused on this feature, and they realized if we focus on this, we can bring it live 2 months earlier, then we earn 2 months more money already with it. And so now it's really a value discussion, which is great, I would say, because this is what it's about. So when I talk about business agility, what does it mean for us? I mean, it means delivery agility is in the heart of it. And delivery agility is really Agile and DevOps. And this is what we do, and this is what enables all the rest, right? So, because if we are not able to deliver fast, and if we're not responsive to what's happening in the market, then we can be excellent in all the other areas, but it will not help. Organizational adaptability is quite important, I realized over the last year, because every company is quite different. I mean, if you work in the public sector, then it's completely different than if you work in retail, if you work in automotive. So all the companies have a different background. They have different depth of what they do themselves, or what they purchase as services, or where they have external suppliers, and so on and so forth, and also how they were growing up over the last year. Then it's about leadership effectiveness. I mean, I see few companies that really take the decisions where the information is. So that really delegate the decisions down, but also enable their people to take educated decision. One of the colleagues I have, he was working for Spotify, and I learned great things about the challenges that you have when you're beyond the typical challenge that our customers have with their legacy. I mean, they have a lot of legacy where you have issues like the data in testing, where you have issues like integrating stuff and really connecting things together, because you still need releases, and you have a lot of dependencies, and they have other issues, like they have thousands of microservices, and how do they manage their microservices and the lifecycle and the stuff. But the Fourth part I want to talk about is product innovation. And the product innovation, I mean, what's it good for if you're agile in delivery? Nokia was good in agile delivery, but if you do miss the point of what is the right product in the market, and if your IT and your business are not close to each other, then it will not bring the value you want to have. So a second example on that. We're working for an international bank, and of course, as you know, banks are typically quite heavy on mainframe. They have also a lot of legacy. They have a lot of legal challenges, so the security is quite high. So, and in all this world, you get disrupted now by fintechs. I mean, this is also, of course, some years old already. But what does the customer want today? I mean, I was buying a bicycle for my little son. He's 3 years old, from my neighbor, and he said, I get 100 euros. So then you stand in front of the door. You don't have money with you, but you pull out your cell phone, and via PayPal, you give them 100 euro, and then you're done. And this is what you expect, and what as a customer, and what the bank was doing is they said we need to drive our digitalization efforts, because we need to be more digital in contact with our customers. So they invested a lot of there. But what did they do? I mean, it was still a waterfall approach in small cycles. It was very heavy. It cost them a lot of money, because now if you start doing waterfall in smaller cycles, then of course you have a lot of effort. And they did not really change as a company as such. They just wanted to mimic what the fintechs are doing. So then again, they got strategy advice to do the Spotify way, and they started, and again, it was the same pattern. They started a thinking process which made them change, because then they said, okay, we need to work in a different way. We need to understand the topic of leadership differently. We need to really transform our company to get this going. What they did then is, and we're talking about 6,500 people in the headquarters, including IT, and they talk about 400 product owners, roughly, right? What they then did is they tested new ways. They hired small boutiques, which helped them in an iterative approach in several areas within that bank to implement pilots, to get going on the way, to really show the success of working in an agile and DevOps way. And what we do now is since mid of 2018, we really discuss business agility. So what does it mean? How do we need to train? We're supporting them on the training of the product owners. We're supporting them in technology area, so to implement also the DevOps pipelines they need. The digital decoupling is a big topic. How can you decouple a mainframe from the new systems and the microservices you build? How can you go to the cloud? What is the topic of hybrid cloud? So I think what really comes out of it is you start in different topics, and also if you think about industries are quite different. In the retail area, it's a challenge since Amazon started their business and the online pure players went to live, because since then in retail it's a big challenge, so they went early. The banking area is since the last 10 years really affected. And when you look at automotive industry, that's for me a challenge that is coming now, and they know already, because I mean when I was young, I mean the car was on my wish list number one, right? I was not living in a big city, so this was on my wish list. If I look at young people today and people that work with me, I mean it's not even in the top 10, right? So there's other things like a cool cell phone and stuff like this. So to sum it all up, from my perspective, I mean, why are we doing this? We do this because the world keeps being disruptive as it is. We will have new players in the market, and we don't know, will they evolve, will they be taking over business models, etc. But it is really clear, if it happens, and you as a company are not able to respond fast by being agile, by being DevOps, but also having your leadership aligned and your organization aligned, then you will not be able to respond fast, right? So what do? we say it needs business agility, and you need to have the 4 things coming together to make it run. Of course, it requires a transformation, and the pattern for me is almost similar. So you start with a vision that you need to share within the company that is clear. Everybody needs to understand where we go, which is a lot of the time not the case in big companies we work for. And you need to prove what you're telling. I mean, we need to implement the pipelines. We need to have the teams working in an agile way. We need to show that the attrition is less of people. We need to show that the happiness index goes up. We need to show it, and then we need to scale it. So, and only then, that is what I say, we can be concrete on what does it mean for your revenue, for your implementation speed, for the quality, for the productivity. So, and even for how are you seen in the market to get the best talent, because in the end, of course, all of this is only possible if you have the best people. Yes, with that, I would like to close my speech, and feel free to connect to me to get more stories, more insights, because that's typically where I engage most, to really go into the topic and say what are the concrete issues and what will help you as a company. Thank you.